I get it, you're looking for a home theater projector that actually lives up to the hype, not just a piece of tech that sounds impressive on paper. You've probably watched a few YouTube unboxings, skimmed a spec sheet, and thought, will this thing really fill my living room with cinema-grade picture without turning my setup into a never-ending nightmare? That hesitation is real, especially when you consider how many expensive projectors end up gathering dust because they're too finicky, need a darkroom, or simply don't deliver the image quality you imagined. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review, I'm going to walk through what it's like to actually install and use the Optoma UHZ36, where the value really shows up, and who should or shouldn't spend their hard-earned money on it. First off, the biggest promise the UHZ36 makes is see the difference 4K UHD. That's not just a marketing line, it's the core of why many people consider a laser projector over a traditional lamp-based unit. The laser light source gives you a stable brightness over the life of the projector, no more worrying about the lamp dimming after a few hundred hours. In my own testing, the moment you fire it up in a dimly lit room, the image is bright enough to compete with LED TVs even when you have a few ambient lights on. The color accuracy is solid enough that you can sit down with a Blu-ray of a recent blockbuster and notice details you'd miss on a standard 1080p TV, deep blacks, vibrant highlights, and a level of saturation that feels true to the source material. One of the most practical strengths is the HDR capability. The UHZ36 actually processes HDR10 content and pushes a higher contrast ratio than many entry-level 4K TVs. When I streamed a HDR-enabled series on Netflix, the highlight detail in a nighttime cityscape scene stayed visible without blooming into a whitewash. That's a tangible benefit if you're the kind of viewer who likes to see the full dynamic range, not just the pretty picture mode that many cheaper projectors fake. Another feature that makes a difference in everyday use is FILMMAKER mode. A lot of people dismiss this as a gimmick, but it's basically a set of picture settings that keep the image close to the director's intent: no aggressive sharpening, no over-processed motion smoothing, and a calibrated color space. For a home cinema purist, this is a win because you can switch to a preset and feel confident you're not cheating the picture. I tried it with a classic film restored in 4K, and the result was remarkably faithful to what you'd see in a theater. Now, let's get real about the installation side. The UHZ36 is a fairly sizable box, and it weighs enough that you'll need a sturdy shelf or a dedicated projector stand. The throw distance is decent, you can get a 100-inch image from roughly 8 feet away, but if you want a true 120-inch screen you'll need to move it back to about 1,011 feet. That's something to keep in mind if your room is on the smaller side. The good news is the lens shift is generous. Both vertical and horizontal shifts give you flexibility to place the projector slightly off-center without keystone distortion. I found that a modest upward lens shift solved the issue of a low-mounted ceiling installation, saving me from having to tilt the unit dramatically, which can affect image uniformity. Speaking of uniformity, the laser light source eliminates the hotspot problem that some lamp-based units suffer from. The brightness is even across the screen, so you don't end up with a brighter center and dimmer edges. However, the projector does rely on a relatively high ambient light rejection. If your room has large windows or bright overhead lights, you'll need either blackout curtains or a dedicated screen with gain to maintain contrast. In a typical living room with a couple of floor lamps, the image still looks punchy, but it's not a substitute for a dark home theater. On the connectivity front, the UHZ36 gives you a decent selection: 2 HDMI 2.0 ports, a USB-C for firmware updates, and even a 3.5mm audio out. The HDMI ports support 4K at 60 Hz, so you can hook it up to a next-gen console or a streaming device without worrying about downscaling. One thing I wish it had is a built-in Ethernet port. The Wi-Fi works fine, but I've noticed occasional hiccups when streaming high bitrate 4K HDR content over a congested network. If you're a gamer, the low input lag is a pleasant surprise, under 20 milliseconds in game mode, so you won't feel a sluggish response that some cinema-only projectors impose. Now, who should walk away with this unit and who should keep looking? If you already have a dedicated media room or a living space where you can control lighting, and you value true 4K resolution with genuine HDR performance, the UHZ36 is a strong candidate. It's especially appealing if you're a cinephile who wants FILMMAKER mode to preserve the artistic intent of the movies you watch.